All right, folks, it is panel time on the Steve Malzberg Show after the interview with Senator Rand Paul. And rejoining the panel is Peter Morici, University of Maryland professor, economist, and Newsmax contributor. And in studio, we welcome in our friend Ron Christie. Of course, you read him at the Daily Beast, where he's a columnist and a former advisor to President George W. Bush. Gentlemen, welcome.
Always a pleasure.
Oh, nice to find my way back here.
Yes. Yeah, Peter took a walk during part 2 of the previous hour's panel, but he's found his way back, and that's okay. All right, so Rand Paul said this, and to me this is huge. He's introducing legislation today to cut off funding to the Palestinian government once and if it becomes unified with Hamas. And he said he's getting some pushback. And I said, pushback from who? And he said, AIPAC. And he said that he feels that people would be shocked, the contributors to AIPAC and the people who show up at the conventions, if they knew that AIPAC's view on this is we've always given aid to the Palestinians, we should continue to give aid to the Palestinians. Ron, it doesn't seem to make sense, but he was very definitive about it.
I think he was very definitive about it. And the thing that I can tell you from firsthand experience for having been in the West Bank and having been in Gaza is that billions of dollars have been squandered over there. They talk about they want to have a two-state solution, but having been to President Mahmoud Abbas's presidential palace, it is ludicrous how opulent that is. So the Palestinians really need to take a lot more self-determination in their own hands rather than squandering money and opportunity to find peace in the Middle East.
What about it, Peter?
Well, I agree. I don't know that the money that we send over there does much good. I'm not surprised that there's some pushback from AIPAC, simply because we tend to think of people in the United States, having sort of unified views, falling into certain boxes. And in reality, when the background breaks down, so do the boxes. They don't fall as neatly as you think. But I don't know that a lot of the money that we send to the Middle East is well spent by any of the parties involved, and least of all the Palestinians.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Suwa Arafat still lives in the most expensive penthouse in the most expensive hotel in Paris, but that was some bank account.
He's an important man.
He was, wasn't he? Yes. Nobel Peace Prize winner.
Penthouse in Paris.
Yeah, there you go. We should not forget that. All right, and on the subject of Benghazi, Ron, we had Lindsey Graham on earlier, and he wants a select committee. He says the White House is lying when they say this email was not about Benghazi. And Rand Paul answered what Jay Carney said today, which was that it's Republicans playing politics with Benghazi. He said, no, it's the Democrats that have been playing politics with Benghazi from the get-go.
Well, it's not just the Democrats, it's the White House. So the White House has really tried to duck every opportunity from subpoenas, lawful subpoenas from the Congress looking for information, looking for emails. Look what we found out here today, Steve. We found out that a federal judge looked at this email and determined that this email was related to Benghazi. The administration tried to spin this and say, well, this is broader about the Middle East and Muslim violence out. No, it's nonsense. They tried every trick in their book to avoid a lawfully issued subpoena, and I think now the mainstream media is going to pay attention to this, and I think the White House is in trouble.
What about it? We talked about this in the previous hour, but Peter, Hillary, is she the big loser here? The longer this story goes on?
Certainly it doesn't help her. I think she'd like it to go away. But so far, the administration, by taking the posture that it does, takes all the heat. Because it seems to be that whatever blame there is for on the White House for ducking responsibility, for not being forthcoming, for ducking subpoenas and so forth. I'd point out there's a real big difference between a subpoena from a federal judge and a subpoena from Congress. After all, I mean, Attorney General Halder was held in contempt of Congress, and nothing's happened. He's not in jail or anything like that. If you recall, Richard Nixon was required by a federal judge to pony up or face contempt fine, and he ponied up on the Watergate papers. Subpoenas to the White House from Congress, they're not going to go very far.
Ron, the Hillary situation, Peter in the last hour said in the long run, unless they have a picture of her with a gun to somebody's head in Benghazi, which there isn't, of course, that then women are going to vote for her no matter what. And by the way, Rand Paul also called for her to testify again to see what her role was in denying Benghazi the help that they had requested. But so address both those points.
Well, first of all, you're looking at a State Department that somehow managed to mismanage $2 billion that they still can't account for. That happened under her watch. And then you have the troubling issue that Ambassador Stevens had asked for additional security. He didn't get it. And now you have these redacted emails coming from the State Department, and the White House was quick to throw the State Department under the bus and say, well, you actually need to talk to them about this. So I do think Secretary Clinton will be held culpable here, and I think people will recognize that she's not the competent, it's the phone ringing at 3 a.m. That she can take care of a serious situation. I think it really is going to impact on her credibility and her leadership.
Yeah, and as far as Rand Paul's call for her to testify again, you think that will be an eventuality?
Perhaps, but I do think that we need a special select committee that the Speaker of the House needs to appoint.
Yeah. Peter?
It's important to recognize over and over again, we hear this, that Americans vote the economy, not foreign policy. At the end of the day, those women that are going to vote for Hillary Clinton believe two things. One is that they earn 77 cents on a dollar to men because there's this terrible discrimination in the system. And that somehow or other we conspire in bars and locker rooms and at golf clubs to keep our thumb on their neck, which is not true. It's just like the racism charge. And they think that somehow or other miraculously, by having a female president, this is all going to get fixed. So at the end of the day, it was only men that died at Benghazi. The women want Hillary, and Hillary they're going to get. It may stick. We might not like it. But until we can show them that they're going to be worse off for Hillary, they're going to vote for her no matter what.
Very quickly, Ron, in about 40 seconds, can they be shown that?
Yeah, I think they can be shown that, and I think the same way that women voting for Hillary just because she's a woman, I think that's a little bit overstated. And number two, I think that the Republicans are going to have to do a much better job of stepping up and saying, particularly, this is why we need Republicans back in the White House. So yeah, I think she is going to have a lot of issues to deal with.
Well, Ron just provided me with a wonderful broadcasting segment. Segue, I should say, to the next topic, and we're going to talk a little bit about some polls that are out regarding Jeb Bush and Rand Paul, but also Hillary Clinton going head-to-head against Jeb Bush in the state of Florida. Very interesting, and of course we'll remind Ron of what he said to me about Jeb Bush's possible candidacy a couple of weeks ago after Jeb Bush made some, I believe, unfortunate immigration remarks. We're coming back, part two. Stay there, Peter. The panel's back. Steve Malzberg Show.